From Mississippi State University in Starkville, Mississippi, this is Taking the Reins podcast. If you love all things horses, get ready for a relatable and educational look into the lives of horses and the people who love them. Now here's our host, Clay Cavender.
That's all right for you, I'm sure. Ginger and I moved to Starkville in January 2015 from Texas A&M. Been there 11 years, and we just gotten here is a big transition point for us because, man, everything in Texas is fast-paced, plenty of restaurants, you can do everything you want to do, and then we come to Mississippi, it's slower paced, things take a little longer. But we went to lunch one day, we were standing in the line at Salsaritas, and I look up, and you don't know this, but you were standing in line, this is 2015, you were standing in line in front of me, and I told Ginger, it's like, that is Roy Oswalt. And she's like, who's that? But man, I remembered like that so vividly. And I left you alone, didn't say nothing. But then it was about a month later, go to eat the Mexican joint, and you're sitting next to us. And I actually spoke to you that day, as introduced myself. But the reason was because when I was in Texas the whole time, I was in Texas from on and off for a little while, but then permanently 2003 to 15. Mm-hmm. And you were pitching for the Astros. And those were years when we got to Texas, the Astros were not very good. And then I think, what was it, 2005, you guys went to the World Series.
World Series.
And you were one of the premier pitchers of that time, that era. Three-time All-Star, NLCS MVP at one time. National League wins leader, 2005, maybe 2006? 4?
5.
Somewhere in there?
4, 05, somewhere in there.
So you were a big deal, and I remember watching that, and then when I didn't put two and two together about Mississippi, but obviously you're from Mississippi. So I appreciate you doing the podcast. Yeah. Where we're going to go with this, and we'll get to the end, is you got a daughter that loves horses. And
loves them.
She's gonna become a part of this whole thing here. But what I really want to do, Roy, is I want you to speak on some things like the mentality you have to compete. Because here's what I've learned I've shown horses my whole life. For me, it's hard because when the lights come on and the people are watching, it's hard not to have this battle in my head with people are watching versus day to day, every day I'm riding at home, I'm out there, it's just me, and I can do it. I feel comfortable and I feel confident. But then I feel the pressure of the big stage. It was always kind of a challenge for me. So I'd like you just to speak a little bit on, looking back at your baseball career, at what point as a kid did you really kind of figure that baseball was going to be a thing for you? And did you know right off the bat, and how did you kind of handle that growth?
I knew that, growing up, I'm the youngest of 3. I have an older sister and an older brother. And I knew at a young age that I could throw harder than most of the kids my age. Even when I was 4 years old, played t-ball at the time, there was no one at first base that could catch it because I was throwing it so hard, at first base. So after I turned 6, they wouldn't let me play t-ball anymore. They had actually moved me up to 9 and 10-year-old because I was hitting too many kids my age. And it was funny because I was already small. I wasn't real big in stature and wasn't the biggest kid on the team, but I was blessed, to be able to throw hard. And so what I did coming up is I played with my brother, which was 2 years older than me. And every year he moved up, I moved up with him. So I was 2 years younger than most of the guys on the team. Some of them 3 years younger. So it made me play a little bit higher than my competition level that I would be at the time, but I had enough talent. It didn't show. I was still one of the better ones on the team.
So it just came natural.
Came natural. Yeah. I mean, it's God-given talent. I work with kids a bunch, and you're either born with it, you don't have it. Yes, you can make a kid. You can correct mechanics and add here and there, but if a kid comes to you and he's throwing 70 miles per hour, you're not going to make him throw 95. That just don't happen. But, I mean, you can, make him throw 73, 74, add a little bit by tweaking mechanics. So speed is just something, velocity was something I was born with. I could throw hard out of the chute. So coming up, went to I lived 40 minutes from Starkville. Went to a small school called Ware. It's a 1A school. We had 30 students in the class, and we actually ended up having one NFL player and one Major League Baseball player in the same class out of 31. I think we had 12 guys.
Player?
Dennis McKinley played up here at State.
Yeah.
And I graduated from high school. I only had one offer to go to college, or had one scholarship to go to college, and it was at Holmes Community College. I wanted to come to Mississippi State. They didn't really look at me out of high school. So I went down to Holmes my first year. I was throwing, in high school I pitched almost every game in my high school career. My sophomore year was the first year we had a baseball team. And I started all the games. And then my junior year, I think I missed 2 games. And then my senior year, I pitched all the games every Monday and Thursday. 7 innings. So back then there wasn't such thing as a pitch count or a bullpen. You just pitched till the game was over. And us being a small school, there wasn't a whole lot of other pitchers on the team. So
what were you throwing? How many pitches
I
were you
was throwing, by my senior year, I was probably throwing 92, topping out at 92. Usually sitting around 89, 90, as a senior. So I signed with Holmes and went to Holmes my first year. And my first year was the first time I actually been in a baseball atmosphere, I guess you'd say, far as our school was a big football school. We had 6 or 7 NFL players come out of Ware, even though it was small. But we never had a baseball team until my sophomore year. My sophomore year, my dad went to the board and actually got them to get a baseball team going. He actually cleared the field and built the field for us. My dad did. So we started that baseball team my sophomore year, went through a senior. I got signed with Holmes my first year. I graduated high school when I was 17, so when I went to Holmes, I was 18 years old. I actually grew a little bit. It's funny, I was kind of late. I probably grew 2 inches, gained about 20 pounds. I started throwing 95 my first year in college. Well, then the scouts started coming when I started throwing a little harder.
Is there really a difference between 92 and 95? Or 90, 95?
Yeah, it does. It makes a pretty good difference. Because most of the time, if you're throwing 95, you're setting 93, most of the game, and you can kind of move the ball around them more. Like a lot of people say, well, I'm throwing 97 miles per hour. Well, he may touch 97, but he probably throws 94, But when you do that, you can actually cut the ball and sink the ball, at 94, 93. Where if you're only throwing 94, when you start trying to cut it and stuff, it's 89, 90. So you're taking a little bit off the ball by cutting it and sinking it. So when I started throwing 95, pro scouts started coming, and that's when colleges, started looking a little more then. Well, after my first year, I was drafted by Houston in the 23rd round, and they offered me just a little bit of signing bonus, so I decided I'm going to go back to school one more year. So I went back to Holmes one more year, and I ended up signing with Mississippi State after my second year at Holmes. But Houston came in right before I went into the draft, and the next year, when I came up, there was a thing called draft and follow. They can draft you one year, and if you don't sign, you sign a draft and follow, and they have your rights until the day before the draft the next year. So at any time during that period, if you decide, I don't want to go to school anymore, you can take the money and go. It's kind of an insurance policy. So the day before I go out of the draft, Houston come in, and I end up going kind of between first and second round. I didn't really go in the draft, but I got the money that would have been between first and second round. Got $500,000. Signed with Houston. I called Mississippi State and told them, "Hey, I'm going. Go ahead and go and play professional ball." First year I went to minor leagues. I threw, about 90 innings in college, and I threw another 90 in pro ball. And then I stayed 3 more years in the minor leagues before I got called up in Houston in 2001. In 2000, I played in AA at Round Rock, Texas, and got selected to go play for the United States and Australia for the Olympic team. And we actually won the gold medal. First time the United States won the gold medal in baseball in 2000. Tommy Lasorda was our manager. And then the next year I was in the big leagues in 2001. I went to AAA for 4 games, and then I got called up. So I pitched with Houston from 2001 till 2010. Then I went to the Phillies for 2 years, and then I was going to retire after the Phillies. I'd had about 12 years in. My kids were growing up fast. I don't know. I wanted to come home. I wanted to come home. Well, halfway through the year, about May, I get a call from Nolan Ryan, and he said, "Hey, we got 2 or 3 pitchers down for the Rangers. You think you can throw?" I said, "Well, I didn't retire because I couldn't throw. I just retired because I ain't been home, in 18 years pretty much." And he said, "Well, see if you can get in shape and see if we can, get you over here." So I go throw some bullpens, work out a little bit. They sent a guy here, actually throw up here I think on the mound at Mississippi State. Guy comes watch me. I'm throwing still 94, 95. I was probably 33 at the time, 34. Signed a half-a-year deal with the Rangers, and I went from sitting on a couch here at Starkville, Mississippi, to pitching against the Detroit Tigers in Texas a month later. Which was pretty tough. Because I had no spring training. I ended up throwing pretty decent. I've given up a lot of hits. I didn't really have my breaking stuff, but I was winning. I was winning games, and it didn't matter to me. As long as I was winning, I was fine with that. End up pitching the rest of the year in the Rangers, and then next year I end up signing with the Rockies and finished up with the Rockies. But I pitched hurt the whole year. I tore my hamstring on the first game I threw, and I tried to pitch through it, and it got worse and worse and worse. And finally, I was out for about 2 months, and I ended up pitching the last month of the season, but ended up pitching 14 years.
Right. You had an amazing career. It's the thing I think is always interesting about baseball is, man, you got so many people. The odds of being the third baseman for 30 major league teams or whatever. There's only 30 of them that get to start, right? And you got hundreds of thousands of kids across the U.S. that are competing for those spots. And then, as far as I understand, you can correct me where I'm wrong, but like a right-handed pitcher, not going to get quite the looks a lefty's going to get, and you're over here throwing it.
The odds, I mean, that's one thing that you don't think about while you're in it, because you always think, hey, I'm going to make it. The odds of making it in the big leagues is
very slim.
Very, very slim. I think it's maybe 1% of the people that actually get drafted make it. So the kids that play little league, I don't know what it would be. It'd probably be less than 0.5%.
I bet it's way down there. And that's kind of my question too. Is did you just have that mindset the whole time that it's going to happen for me, or what? At what point was it at Holmes that you were like, okay, this could be a reality?
Growing up, I've never even where I grew up at, and there's never anybody close been drafted. I've never even heard anybody get drafted. I really didn't think I had what it took until I got drafted out of junior college. I knew that I had great stats in junior college, and I knew I could, out of all the teams that we played, I was one of the hardest throwers on the team. And a game stat would be, say 7 innings, I'd strike out 14. I knew that was good, but I didn't think it would be good enough to be able to play in the big leagues. And until I got drafted and started playing my first year in the minor leagues and seeing the guys that was drafted with me, I'm like, hey, I think I'm a little bit better than this guy right here. I'm starting 5 on that team. I'm like, I think I'm better in this, league. But I knew there was more leagues to get there, but I felt like I had a chance when I got to AA. When I got to AA, I really learned how to pitch. One of the guys I credit a lot of my success to was Greg Maddox's brother named Mike Maddox, played for 14 years in the big leagues, and he was mostly a bullpen guy. But he threw 88, 89 miles per hour, but he pitched 14 years in the big leagues because he knew how to pitch. It's kind of like Greg, they can move the ball around and stuff like that. When I got to AA, I really learned how to pitch. Before then, I could overpower most guys. But by the time I got into minor leagues, I was throwing 97, 98. I could move the ball around on the plate. Most guys couldn't catch up to it. Once I got to AA, guys started kind of getting adjusted to that. So now he started teaching me how to kind of move the ball back and forth, not only up and down, out and in. We're moving the ball back and forth. So, we can cut a little ball here, make them hit it off the end of the bat. We can sink one right here, run it in on our hands, set up guys. He would get in the box and set up different ways and say, all right, what you looking for right here? I'm just throwing my pitch. He said, no. This guy's set up this way. He's looking for a ball down and away. So he started showing me different things to look for in these hitters, and my game just took off. I ended up having a 1-something ERA in AA, and I went to the Olympics, and we won the gold, and then next year I'm in the big leagues. And my first year in the big leagues, I ended up going 14-3 with like a 2-something.
Wow. So let's fast forward to like a high pressure moment like the World Series or something. So it wasn't that long. If you went in at 01, y'all were in the World Series in 05.
05.
So 4 years is not that long, really. So here you are standing on a national, obviously it's national spotlight. Was there ever any mindset of this may not work, or I may be in a bad spot here, or this guy's better than me as far as hitting? Was there any doubt in your mind? How do you handle the pressure of that kind of situation?
Coming from where I came from, we didn't get to watch a lot of TV, a lot of baseball on TV. And unless you were a big name, I didn't know who you were, And so when I got in the big leagues, we would face certain people on other teams that were real all-star type players. But I didn't know who they were.
Wow.
And which was crazy because,
that's not happening today.
Yeah, it don't happen today because of the internet and stuff like that. Right. But like back then, we would get one game a week on regular TV, and a lot of time it would be the Braves. So I knew the Braves back in the day with Justice and Mark Lemke at second and Bowler, and I knew all those guys just because they came on TV. And if they played somebody, I may catch a name here and there, but unless you were a Nolan Ryan or somebody like that, I really know. Now, once I got in the league, I knew who McGuire and Sosa and stuff like people like that was. But if you were just a really solid player, I didn't know it unless you was advertised a lot, and that helped because I didn't look at the names. I got up there and I said, we go into a scouting thing. It's like, all right, Mark Grace is coming up to hit. I mean, this is the way we're going to pitch him. Mark Grace was a great hitter.
Great.
But I didn't know who he was. I just knew that, hey, he had a hard time hitting the ball down the way, or he had a hard time hitting the ball in. If we cut it, whatever it was, I was like, all right, well, I'm going to get him out that way. So I'd set him up to get him out that way. So that helped a lot going into it. But I never, one of the things it never bothered me is pitching in front of people. I knew I could do it, and I never went into a game like, oh my God, there's Sammy Sosa, or oh my God, there's Mark McGuire. I always been like, you ain't got a chance. I had that mentality, and if he got a hit, it was my fault. It wasn't because he was a good hitter. I was like, oh my God, I left that ball just a little bit over the black. The ball was supposed to do this. I remember the first time I faced Tony Gwynn, I think I had him 1-2, 0-2. I threw him a curveball, and he was way out front of it and barely hit it off in the bat and hit a blooper with second. Man, it made me so mad. And I come in the dugout, and Brad Osmond was the catcher, and he goes, what, you had him out front. He barely tinked the ball over the infield. What are you mad about? I said, he wasn't supposed to get a hit. He said, the guy hits 400 almost every year. I'm like, yeah, not off me.
Tony Gwynn was one of the best hitters ever. Yeah.
But the way I felt like it is like I had him beat. I had him 0-2, 1-2, had him beat. And if I just dropped that ball a little bit shorter, maybe a rollover or strikeout, which he only struck out about 20 times a year, but I had him set up for that. And that's the way I took it on the mound. Like, it didn't matter who got in the box. You weren't going to beat me. If you beat me one time, you dang sure ain't going to beat me again. And I watched a little bit of Nolan Ryan when he came on, when I was growing up, how he intimidated guys. So I always tried to carry that into the field. Even though I was smaller, I could throw hard. If a guy tried to lean in on me, I was going to push him back. I was going to push him back, and I was going to make them respect the plate. The way I look at it is I'm going to give you the inside part of the plate, but if you start stretching out over that outside part of the plate, I'm going to back you up, So if I threw that ball down the way and they hit a bullet at me or hit a bullet to right field, I knew they was leaning out over the plate. So I'm going to run something in there hard on you. And I ain't going to run to just make you just move your arms. I'm going to make you move your body, And then sometimes guys want to get out of the way and they got hit. And some people, oh, he's trying to throw at me. I'm not trying to throw at you, but you're going to respect some of the plate, and that's where you had to be. At this day and time, it's a little bit different because you get close to somebody, they try to give you a warning. Back when I pitched, you could brush guys back, move them back off the plate, make them move their feet, making them uncomfortable. Because the hardest thing with hitting is if you're comfortable at the plate, you're going to hit really well because you're not worried about getting hit with the ball. Well, most fear with the guys are, I don't really want 97 in the ribs or 98 in the neck. So you got to be kind of timid on your feet, like, all right, that's one I want to hit. That's one that one. Oh my God, So you have to move them back and forth, and I never agree with trying to throw straight at somebody. I didn't do that, but I threw a lot of balls that ran toward guys that make them move, to get them out and away later. And sometimes you have to set up hitters for later in the game. There was an instance where I was pitching in Texas, and Joe Mauer was a catcher, and he had hit 2 or 3 times off me through the years. He had flipped the ball over shortstop. He's a left-handed hitter, and ball down the way, he flipped it over there. Well, I'd thrown in a couple of times, but he didn't even move. He just, because he knew I had pretty good, I could throw the ball, pretty good control. Well, I threw the ball in. He just kind of lifted his arms up like no big deal. I just sat back out over the plate. I said, well, I'm going to throw one in him pretty hard, I'm going to make him move. Well, he didn't move. He turned. When it turned, he hit him right in the back, Well, that big upset about it. But I knew the guy on deck was a catcher. I only had one out. I'm looking for a double play. I had a man at third base. Well, I'm going to let Mauer flip one over shortstop to get him home. I was just trying to all right, well, if he don't get out of the way, it hits him. I got a man at first. Next guy roll over, double play. And sure enough, next pitch, double play. I'm out of the inning. Well, everybody's all mad about it. Why'd you? I didn't throw it at him. I threw him to make a point that he's going to have to move. He's not going to keep flipping that ball down the way over the shortstop. Well, later in the game, after he got smoked one time, I got him out down the way because it set up that, right. From the second inning, third inning, when I faced him, it set him up later because he's thinking now, oh, my God, I got hit in the spine one time. Where's he going to throw it? Got to just that little bit of doubt makes a big difference, with pitching.
This conversation is great for me. I hope everybody else enjoys it, but what you're doing is putting me back in my childhood. I grew up in Southeast Oklahoma. This is not a joke. We had one channel on TV. TV was not important to my family. We worked, but we would come in at night. You got a KTBX out of Shreveport, or KTBL, I can't remember what it was, but as out of Shreveport, you get off that antenna. So you got some sports, but not much. But the one thing that we did once a year was my dad, one thing he did let me do was he would tell me every year, like, you pick one game in Arlington and we'll go. First game I was ever at, so you mentioned like Nolan Ryan, like that is absolutely quintessentially my hero growing up. I had a T-shirt that said the K Train on it. I mean, he's amazing. Yeah. But he was pitching in Texas, and it's probably mid-'80s, somewhere in there. And I picked a game. Unfortunately, I picked a game that he had. The next night is when he faced Robin Ventura, and Robin gave up 7 hits to Nolan in the face. But anyway, they were playing the Royals, and I remember as Brett Saberhagen was pitching, Bo Jackson was a stud outfielder. Oh, yeah. George Brett was one of my favorite ever at first base. But I can't remember who was pitching for Texas, but they just everybody kept hitting each other. Until about the 6th inning, and then it became a big brawl. And Brett Saberhagen, George Brett, they both got kicked out of the game. But I never forgot that. But just those dynamics of some of the players you were talking about is really bringing me back. But you also said something important too. So the question I asked you about the national stage or the spotlight, you just mentioned something. You kind of broke it down microscopically to the pitch. Did that ever tinker with your mindset either? Like maybe you have handled the momentum of the game and the atmosphere, but then you get into one of the, we watch it all the time. You're watching sports, and 8th or 9th inning, teams up by 2 or 3 runs, they load the bases, 1 out, and you got people, threatening to score. What about the microscopic pressure of that one pitch? Does that get to you? Is it the same perspective?
I think that's what separated a lot of the good ones from the great ones is you really expect yourself to be successful. You don't. one thing I teach my kids this a lot is never look at the glass half full. Half empty. I always look at it as half full, because it didn't matter who. Like, even in the World Series, I pitched the first game ever ever in Texas in the World Series. So we played 1-2 against the White Sox in Chicago. Well, Game 3, I pitched Game 3. I had pitched the last game against St. Louis to put us in, so I had to miss the first 2 games to get number 3 game to give me 4 days rest. So I pitched the first game ever in Texas, and that was a big thing in Texas. Texas, nobody in Texas had ever been to a World Series. Houston Astros, first time ever. I'm sitting on a mound in Houston, and there's 45,000 people in the stadium. It's standing room about 3 deep in there. When the game started, I didn't hear the noise. The roof was closed. It's loud in the Astro Stadium. It's really loud. I didn't hear the noise, and I was so focused on what I was trying to do with them that the other stuff didn't really come into effect. And I remember, I can almost tell you every pitch I threw in that game. I think it was the 5th or 6th inning, maybe the 5th inning. I had, at the time, I think I've only given up 1. And third baseman hit a home run to right field in the 5th inning. And then the next thing I know, I give up a couple of singles through the infield here and there, and it was 2 men on, and A.J. Brzezinski comes up. And I think we were winning 4-1 at the time, or maybe 3-1. I go 3-0 with A.J. I don't really have any. I think it might have been base loaded. It was base loaded. I go 3-0 with him. The only thing that creeped my mind right there was the next guy was a pitcher, I think, or either the 8th place hitter that I got out a bunch. And I'm thinking, I could walk him right now. We're still winning 3-2, and I get a double play and get out of it. And I said, no, I'm not walking him. I'm going to go right after him. Well, I threw a 3-1 pitch, and A.J. hit a ball right center that fell in between the 2 guys, and they tied up the game, 3-3, I think it was. And that's the only pitch I ever in my career really thought I should have had it back. And I should have put A.J. on just because I was behind 3-0, because the next guy, I knew I could get out. I knew I could get a double play or a strikeout with him. And I pitched, over 2,000 something innings. That's the only one that really stuck with me that I second-guessed myself on the mound when, the crowd would have been like, oh, my God, we walked a guy home. But I'm not looking. I don't care about individual stats. I'm looking for wins. If we win that game right there, that may have propelled us to win it, So that's the only pitch in my career, really and truthfully, I wish I'd take back. And it wasn't a bad pitch. A 3-1 sinker down the way, hit it, in between the fielders. It wasn't like hit it out of the park. That pitch 2 inches lower might have been a double play. You never know. But hindsight, I would have probably put him on because I was 3-0 and he knew I had to come over the plate, or either threw something out of the strike zone to see if he'd chase it, and then work the next guy and try to get a double play. But
I watched all this, and so I'm sitting here thinking, it's hard to believe I'm sitting here talking about it, because I remember I lived 90 miles from Texas, or from Houston, and we go to the games. That's a great stadium. If you've never been, you need to go, because like you mentioned, you can open, close the roof, and
oh man,
it's just a beautiful stadium. Yeah. But who was the toughest batter you ever faced?
Barry Bonds.
So he truly is the guy then.
I know Barry did a lot of things that enhanced some of his play. But there was a lot of guys that did a lot of things that enhanced that play, and they wasn't even close to what Barry did. The year that Barry hit 70 home runs, I'd faced him a bunch. I faced him, a good bit through his career.
Any of those 70 home runs your pitches?
No. No. I did give up 1 home run to Barry in opening day in 2003, I think it was. I think that year he hit 60-something. And he tied the game up on me in the 8th inning. I was going into the 8th inning on opening day, and Jimmy Williams was our manager. He come walking out there, and he said, I think we ought to put him on. I had a man at first, and I was only winning by two runs. He said, I think we ought to put him on. I go, I ain't putting him on. And he said, I really think we ought to put him on, because he had got 2 hits off of me before, but the one with a gem shot, we had a shift on. He hit barely a bleeder down third baseman line. If a guy would have been sitting there, would have got him out. And then he hit a ball to the left center that fell in. But I jammed the crap out of him twice, and it's hard to jam Barry. And so I'm like, all right, well, I done thrown in hard on him a bunch. I'm going to get a strike away, and I'm going to see if he's going to chase. And I told Jimmy, I said, if I get behind him, I'll put him on. But if I don't get behind him, I'm going after him. The first pitch, I threw a 2-seamer off the outside part of the plate, and Barry somehow hooked it. I don't know how he did it. If you'll go back and look at the swing at this, he almost squatted while he swung to be able to reach it. And he pulled it down the right field line, which I know a lot of people don't understand pitching, but when you throw a ball that's 6 inches off the outside part of the plate and a batter hits it off the end of the bat, he never pulls it and hits it for a home run. Never. He may hit a bullet back at you if he hits it solid, or he may hit it out to left field if he's left-handed. He may hit it opposite field, but he's not going to pull that ball with a ball going that fast away from him and pull it for a home run. He hit a line drive that didn't get much over 20 feet, went out of the park. Wow. And the outfielder was Richard Odago at the time. He actually stepped in because the way he swung, he thinking there's no way he hit it out of the park. And I knew right then, I said, I've never seen anybody do that before. He done things that it just mind blowing. I remember the day he tied Mark McGwire with 70 was in Houston, and we had brought up a left-handed pitcher that had been in the minor leagues for a while, threw real hard, kind of wild, but threw real hard. Well, I could see it in his eye that he wanted to strike him out, and I'm thinking, don't just keep running that 97 up there, because it doesn't matter how hard you throw the Barry, he's going to hit it. Well, he threw one, and Barry fouled it straight back, and I'm like, don't throw that again. Please don't throw it again. Well, he threw it, and he hit it so far in the upper deck at our place, it was unbelievable. And, I mean, just a crack of the bat, but Barry was just, for a 3-year window there, toward the end of when we started testing and getting steroids out of the game, he was a little bit easier to get out. But there was a 3-year window there with Barry from like 2000 to about 2003. I've never seen anything like it. I mean, everything that you got close to the plate with, it was either a line drive or it was a home run.
Do you think the steroid era made that much of a difference?
100%.
Did?
100%. These kids today, I talked to some of them that's in the big leagues. They're talking about these hitters now. I said, man, we had second basemen hitting what y'all number one guy did. I mean, we had a boy from Seattle, Boone, hit 50-something as a second baseman. He was 5'8", 5'9". And now these guys, like, I think, Judge hit 60 home runs. Oh, that's great. And I was like, I mean, we had 5 and 6 people in the league with over 60. We had Sammy, McGuire, A-Rod, I think, won 58 one year. I mean, it was so many more home runs back then than it is now, just because of those guys could wait so much longer for the ball to travel before they hit it. And, I mean, you know what it does. I mean, it makes you stronger. I mean, everybody knows that.
Yeah, interesting stuff. I want to transition just a little bit now. Let's fast forward to the end of your career. You kind of get to the point where you want to be done and refocus. What was that transition like? Because I think a lot of guys go for that bravado of, I am who I am, and now I'm going back to small town Mississippi. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but yeah, it's a big change, I'm sure.
Well, I think the hardest thing after I played baseball since I was 4 years old, and I was on the road for 18 years when I left home. I played about every city in the United States, so baseball was my life, pretty much. And you have to treat it kind of that way, because the guys that you play against in the league are so good. The only way you separate yourself from them is you have to outwork them. So baseball is when I had 3 months off in the off season, I would take 1 month off. All my buddies would be hunting, whatever they were doing, they was having fun. I was lifting weights in the morning and running and doing my workout in the afternoon, throwing and stuff. And I did it for every year. And I knew I had to do that to be better than them. Because the talent level is so close to each other. Everybody's really, really good. Well, the only way to make yourself better than them is to outlast them. And that's what I did. I worked way harder than most of the guys that was in the league. If they did something, I tried to do it twice as much, just because I was smaller. So that's, my life for 18 years, that's what it was. And then when you start getting toward that end where the game starts kind of changing from a fun game, competition, to I got to go to the park, I knew I was getting toward the end. And when I started dreading kind of making myself get ready in the off season, going to spring training, not having a lot of fun on the field, I knew I was about at the end of my rope, as far as playing. A lot of people play for numbers. I didn't play for numbers. I played to win. I won every league I've ever been in, except I got close in the big leagues. I made it to the World Series. I didn't win it there, but we won A-ball, AA, AAA. We won every league. But I knew when I was running out of the fun of the game, it was time to go home. So when I did retire and actually come home, that's probably the hardest part of any major league guy, because you go from somebody around you every day pulling on you, do this, do that, or wanting to be around you or whatever, to everybody's working, all your buddies are working, and you don't have a job and you're sitting at the house. I've seen so many of my friends get hooked on stuff, drugs, something that wasn't right, and go down a bad path. Some of them not here, some of them died, because you're 35. I was 36 at the time. You got a lot of living to do. Most people retire when they're 65. So you're looking at, well, I might have 10 years left. I might have 20 years left. You don't know what the number is. You don't know if you're going to live tomorrow. But when you're 36, you feel like, well, at least, I'm not even halfway through. And that was tough, coming home. You don't really know who you are because you was a baseball player, That's who I was known. That's the baseball player. That's the baseball player. They don't know your name. That's right. A baseball player. And I finally got to a point in my life I didn't want to be the baseball player. I wanted to be Roy. I want to be a solid Christian man. I wanted people to remember me, not what I did on the field, but what I did with my life. And probably took me 4 or 5 years after I retired to find that, and once I found it, the peace of it has been tremendous. My number one thing in life is not the Hall of Fame in the big leagues. It's getting my, I say this all the time, the only thing you can really carry to heaven with you is your kids, and try to lead an example for them. And my dad was a great example for me. He's a deacon of a church, been in church every day. I want my kids to see what I saw in him, to see a good role model, Christian man, do the right thing.
It's a fantastic transition to while we're here. And that's to talk about how we're going to, people probably wonder, because people listening to this are genuinely horse people, but they're probably wondering the whole time, how are we going to tie this back to horses? You just mentioned your kid. I love the fact that you did it. We all got some form of a transition where I'm not retired, but you got to figure out who your identity is. I love the explanation you just carried us into this next question, but you were a father during the majors, but then when you get out, now you get all this time to devote to your kids and do things with them or establish deeper relationship, however you want to define it. How has that been as far as the two going from this transition, realizing the example you want to be? How's that worked into your kid's life? Your daughter, your youngest daughter, is in love with horses, enjoys being around horses. And so I'm sure she's glad that she's got her dad full time.
I got to spend a lot of time with my youngest one when I came home. She was really young. So my first one, I missed a little bit of my first kid was, probably she was born in 4, so I missed about 10, 11 years of her life, being on the road most of the time, and getting to do a lot of things that Dad gets to do. I didn't get to do it because the birthdays I was gone. A lot of the holidays I wasn't there because when you play in the big leagues, you're gone 2 to 3 weeks out of a month. It's according on what month it is. You may be in, New York for 3 days. You may be in Miami for 3 days. You may be in Cleveland for 3 days. You may be in San Francisco for 3 more days. And then you come home for 3 days, and you get your suitcase undone and wash it and get back in there and go back on the road again. So you're gone a lot. So I missed a lot of my first one. She played softball, and when she got in high school, we started kind of doing that together. And when I retired, I got to spend a little bit more time with them, one-on-one and doing a lot of things. But my youngest daughter, my middle daughter, is a senior this year. She cheers for East Webster, and she played sports a little bit at the beginning, and she has really unbelievable hand-eye coordination. But halfway through, she decided she didn't want to play sports, which killed me because I'm a sports guy, and I liked her playing sports and stuff, and I always try to make her play something or ask her to play something. But my last one, I've never really been around horses my whole life. Baseball was about it. My last one, let me go back to my first. My first one wanted to do horses. So we bought a horse. It lasted about 2 months. And she decided she didn't really want to do the horses anymore. So we sold the horse, and I thought that was going to be the end with the horses. Well, my last one comes to me, and she's probably 8 years old at the time. I said, Dad, horses. Man, I want some barrel horses. I love barrel racing. I love barrel horses. So we ended up buying a little $1,000 horse, old 25-year-old horse. See, I think 2 months, it's going to be it. 2 months into it, we've probably run our first barrel race, probably 2 months into it. She barely getting in a good trot, going around the barrels. Loves it. I mean, she loves it. And I say, hey, with the horse, there's a lot of responsibility to go with this. Dad's still got things to do. We got to clean the stalls and wash the horse and stuff like that. And she was doing it. And I'm like, might last a little long, Well, about 3 or 4 months into it, she's like, we need a faster horse, Dad. This ain't fast enough. We're not winning.
How old is she at this time?
She was probably 12.
Okay.
And so we buy her a little better horse, we call it 2D horse, in the local shows here. And she gets it, and within 3 or 4 weeks, we're starting to place. We're starting to place pretty good in the 2D, and I'm like, you're riding pretty well, And we had a little local girl that actually went to Mississippi State, kind of teach her the basics of riding. And then after we got this next horse, we found a lady down in Louisville that taught barrel racing. So we've been going down. We still go down there and learn from her. So after the 3 or 4 months with this second horse, I hear, Dad, we need a faster horse. We need a 1D. We need a 1D horse. I'm like, so we go get a 1D horse, and now we got 2 horses, for her, and she rode it, done really well. Fast forward a year, and she's been riding pretty much for about 2 years now, consistently on a decent horse. And last year she ran 8th in the world in Georgia. I think it was not the first day, the second day. They have 2 rounds, and then they have the finals. And then the second round she ran 8th. Best time and out of 1,445 horses. Wow! So she's doing really well. I see her and me a lot. I mean, I see me and her a lot. When I didn't win, I got quiet. People would ask me a bunch of questions. I kind of get the one-word answer. I was trying to be polite, but it eats at me, because I feel like I should win all the games, and she's the same way. Even though, we don't have those $200,000, $300,000 horses, she still thinks she should be beating them, and I like that in her. I know it probably not the correct parenting that you want to do. You want them to be nice all the time. But I want to be competitive. I want whatever they do in life, doesn't matter if it's horse racing or picking up the garbage, it doesn't matter. I want them to try to be the best at it and be competitive in what they do. And she's got that edge about her where she wants to be, the best at it. And well,
how do you balance that then? Like, we see that so much in all things, whether it's baseball, softball, soccer, horses, whatever it may be. How do you you don't want to, I see so much flaw in these. I'm not picking. I just don't agree with it, I guess. It's like we take a 9-year-old kid and we run him all summer through travel ball and all this stuff, and by the time, same thing with horses, you can take a kid who's 9, 10, 11 years old, push, and when they're 15, they got don't want nothing to do with it. So how do you balance, knowing the competitor that you are, saying that your daughter's the same kind of competitor, how do you balance encouragement but also not pushiness? I think those are very different.
Well, I think the biggest thing is explain to them, this is what I try to explain to her. I said, if I didn't see something in you, I wouldn't push you this hard. And I said, watching other people ride and the people that's been riding all their life and you're riding better than they are, I see that if you want to do this for a living, if this is what your love is, don't doubt yourself that you can't make it because you're from Starkville, Mississippi, or wherever you're from. Don't let that come into your mind. Let come into my mind is I'm going to work hard as I can at it, and if I don't make it, that's fine. But I've got a chance in front of me where I could do something that I've always wanted to do in my life. And I think there's a fine line where you kind of set at, where you don't want to push them too hard where they don't like it. But there's also the fine line with kids is kids want discipline. Kids are, this new era of everybody wants a trophy is not my era. That's not who I am. And I told her the same thing. I said, listen here, when we do this, I understand that you got to start somewhere, and we're winning a lot of the 2D when she was 12 years old. But our goal is to get in that 1D. We want to be the fastest horses at the rodeo. That's what we're going for. Yes, you have to learn to get there because you can't jump on a 1D horse as a 12-year-old and win it. I understand that. But we can work on our riding every day to be able to get that horse as going as fast as he can go, so we can buy a horse that can get us in that 1D and you be able to ride it. So that's what we've done. I've done with her is progressively look at horses, different horses, and say, all right, this horse is not a drop and drive type horse. My daughter don't like those type horses, but that horse right there runs around the barrel. She likes those style better. So I try to find her horses that fit her the best, and to build her confidence as she goes. Because the worst thing you can do is buy something too much for them, especially with the horses. You don't want them to get scared of it. And I've tried to just barely move her up, a little bit at a time to get her adjusted to a faster horse. You get a 1D horse, most of them are crazy. Most of them are going to jump around, act crazy because they know they're athlete, just like anybody. Their adrenaline gets up before they about to run. You can walk them out there during practice 30 minutes before they got to run, and they'll walk around those barrels just as calm. You can put a baby on them. But something clicks with them when they're about to run. They sense it from the rider, and they start getting amped up. You'll see them start bouncing. Their body starts bouncing, almost vibrating, and it's amazing how they can tell the difference. It's the same arena. You walk out there one time, be a bunch of horses standing around, they'll walk around the barrels. And I don't know if they feel that through the rider or what, but as soon as that race is about to start and they know they're about to run through the gate, they'll start vibrating.
That's exactly what's going through my head. So I'm sitting here thinking, like, okay, where do I want to go with this next question? And it's like, baseball, as you described, requires emotional control. I'm sure that there's times where, maybe not you're a pretty chill dude, but I'm sure you've seen other athletes that got all the ability in the world, but their emotion, they can't control their emotion, and that affects performance.
100%.
Now you add, and you may not be a direct horse guy, but you're getting it. But things you're describing, you're definitely seeing. So when you think about your daughter competing, do you see parallels between the emotional control an athlete without a horse, just one on by himself, has to have, that parallels riding? Because now you're combining this horse, and I've done this my entire life. They can pick up on the most minute variability in your demeanor, attitude, mood, whatever. So do you see parallels in there that you have had to explain with your kid
100%.
about?
Horses is amazing. Like I said, I wasn't around them growing up, but I've been around them for the last 5 or 6 years now, and it's amazing how they feed off of their rider. That you can have a unbelievable horse that wins a race by a half a second with a certain rider, and you can put another rider that's a good rider on it, and it may not even come in the four day. they feel the rider, and they know what it doesn't matter. I tell my daughter this all the time, if you go into a race with a bad attitude, that horse is going to have a bad attitude. And they feel it. But if you go in there with confidence and you know that you're going to run these barrels as fast as you can run, that horse is going to give you everything you want. And she's starting to realize that the more she rode, if she's nervous before the thing, the horse is nervous. The horse is just, shaking, vibrating. But if she's competitive and she's going through her head like, I'm going to run these barrels and this is where I'm going to attack the barrel in this pocket or whatever, the horse has a whole different demeanor. I mean, you can dang near put him wherever you want to, but if you got that nervousness about him, that horse is out of control, runs in out of control, don't know what's going on. It feels the rider, either blood pressure or nerves or whatever it does, but it can feel the rider. And that's one of the things I relate to with baseball. When you step on a big league mound, you have to have that confidence about yourself because all the players around you can see you and they can feed off of you. When you walk onto the mound and you have that confidence, there's nobody in the box is going to beat you. Everybody behind you feels it. You ask anybody that played behind me, and they'll say, we love playing behind him because he pitches fast and he knows what he wants to do. You don't want that guy sitting on the mound like 4-hour game because they're standing back there going, this guy don't even know what the heck he wants to throw.
I remember that. You do pitch fast. Like you get the ball and you go. I remember that.
Everybody was asking about the pitch clock, and I said it wouldn't have bothered me because I would have pitched way before it started anyway. Yeah. Most of my games was 2.5 hours.
Yeah. Remember that. That's good. A lot of times thinking about this emotional perspective that riders have to have. A lot of young riders, especially, they've got. I'm sure your kids, you've seen it, like she has a bad show or a bad ride or whatever it may be. Speak to the general audience, maybe not just what you tell your own daughter, but the kid out there that's learning or the parent that's learning how to help their own kid or whatnot. What advice would you give them about managing expectation or even learning through mistake? Is there some pointers you'd have for that?
The one thing I've learned with horses, being around horses, is, you got a 1,000-pound animal that you're trying to tame pretty much as you're riding. And horses are like people a lot too. They're going to have good days and bad days also. I mean, you're not going to be automatic every time you go out there. But the preparation, I tell my daughter, Aubrey, I said the preparation is where you make the horses to be the best they can be at the show. I said, if you don't come down here and ride this horse 2 or 3 times a week, you're not going to be very good at the show. I said, a horse don't know what to do. The horse don't feel what you want him to do. I said, you have to do the preparation before you get to the show. Baseball the same way. You have to prepare before you get there because once you get in the show, you can't prepare. You got to be ready before you get there. So my daughter shows up, 3 days a week, rides the horses. Doesn't matter if it's 35 degrees, 40 degrees, she rides the horses. And we try to do as much training as we can to get ready for the show. The only thing different between baseball and horses is we don't have a 1,000-pound animal in baseball and the horses you do. So some days you go in there that, if you're riding 2 different horses, 3 different horses, one of the horses may have a bad day. That's just part of it. We're going to get him the next time. But out of 2 or 3 of them, most time you're going to have one that's going to have a pretty good day. Sometimes you have all 3 and not have a good day. But you can't take that first ride into the second ride. Same thing with pitching. You get up a home run, you can't think about the next batter. He's a whole different batter. Same with a whole different horse. So you have to take that mentality into the show. So I said, listen here, we run in there, we ran over 2 barrels. What do you think you did? I think I turned him a little soon. Okay, let's get ready for the next horse. That's over with. There's nothing you can do about it. You can't put the barrels back up. We go to the second horse and let's think about, all right, I turned that one a little quick. I'm going to get him one more step by the barrel before we turn. Same thing with pitching. All right, I left that ball just a little bit on the white. He hit it out of the park. Let's just try to make a better pitch on the next one. Can't worry about that. The thing about baseball that's a little different than horses is I got 9 innings. I may give up a home run the first inning, but I may pitch 8 more innings, shutout. I got a chance. Well, if you only got 1 horse, you hit a barrel, you out. Right. So there's a little bit of difference in that, but it's the same concept.
So Aubrey, what's the proudest moment in her horse career that you've experienced so far?
Probably at the World Show this year when she ran 8th. I mean,
8th at how many did you say?
1,440. we went into this race, and she had ran the year before. Was the first time she ever ran in the world, and she did get a horse in the final the first year. She got one horse in the final the first year. So we came in this year, we had 3 horses we ran, and she ended up putting 2 out of 3 in the final this year. And the year before, on the same horse, she had ran like a 15.5. The winner this year was a 14.6. And I was thinking, she riding a little bit better this year. Before you get there, there's a sheet of paper there, and you get to write your times on it. If you get the correct time, you win like a little buckle if you hit the perfect time. So she was writing her times in, and I saw her write up 15.1. That would be 4/10 better than she did last year. And I was thinking that probably about right, probably 15.1. When she ran in there, she ran a 14.8, which was 2/10 off the best horse in the whole world. I don't think she expected it. I didn't expect it. I was just like, oh my God. She just it was pretty much unbelievable. And when she come out, we looking at each other like, what just happened? And she's like, I think I blacked out. It was amazing to see her understand what she'd been doing on the side, at the house, the work to get there. It paid off, once you got there, and it's a special moment there. It's just like the World Series. You got the best ones. We got countries coming in from Austria, Puerto Rico, Mexico. They're flying horses in on airplanes to do these shows. So it ain't like you just competing against the people here in Mississippi. It's a big show, and for her to run that, that speed and that good there, it was a big payoff for what she'd been doing.
Last question I got for you. So everything we've talked about today, again, kind of the same question, but talking to parents that are racing kids, and maybe they haven't found their niche yet. Maybe they don't know if they're an athlete or they're going to, riding horses is an athlete, no doubt about that.
Yeah.
Whatever form of athleticism they want to do. What a piece of advice, if you could leave them with one thing, what would you leave them with?
Well, one thing I've always liked about sports, all sports, is most sports doesn't matter. There's a few sports that's individualized, but most sports are team sports. So you're not just amongst yourself. You're trying to better a team. You're trying to make a team better. Even horses. You're a team. You're a horse and you're a team. There's a lot of responsibility in sports, and that's one thing I think kids today don't have as much as when we grew up. It's the responsibility side to realize the discipline and the responsibility it takes to be great at a sport. And I think sometimes everybody winning a trophy is not the right way. That's not the right way to do it. Life is hard all the way around. Everybody don't get a trophy in life. You work hard, put your dues in, you're most likely going to be successful. Success doesn't come to the lazy. It don't. You're lazy, you don't win a whole lot. You put forth effort, you can win at life. You can win a lot of things. And I think parents, the way I try to teach my kids is, doesn't matter what you do. I don't care if whoever you want to be, but don't do it halfway. Do it all in. And if it don't happen, it don't happen. Everybody don't get to play in the big leagues. I got blessed. I got blessed to be there. I was born with a talent that God decided out of all these people, I'm going to bless this kid right here to throw hard. Some people get it, some people don't. My dad, he played a little baseball growing up, played softball on the weekend. My mom played a little bit of softball. I didn't come from like a long line of baseball players. It just, I got an older brother. He was a good baseball player. He couldn't throw as hard as I could throw. Why didn't he get it and I didn't? So I was blessed with being able to throw hard. But I think parents were missing it a little bit where, everybody wants to give their kids as much as you want to give them. But you don't, being somebody that's done this, you don't want to make everything easy. make everything, you giving everything to them. Make them strive for it, because they will appreciate it more in life, later on in life, by earning it themselves. I tell a story. I remember one of my daughters was playing on a summer league team, and she started out the season and she played, I don't know, halfway through it, and then she wanted to do cheer too. And I said, listen here, you know, I don't mind you doing cheer, but you need to, you already started this, and I want to do cheer instead. I want to do cheer instead. Well, she ended up, I said, well, you're going to finish the regular season. Well, she finished the regular season, and well, they ended up going to playoffs, and they won the whole thing. They won like a little trophy or whatever, and they tried to send it to her, and I said, you're not getting a trophy. And she just couldn't understand why she wouldn't get a trophy. I said, you didn't play. You didn't, I mean, yes, you was on the team at the very beginning, but you didn't play. And people, I guess, thought that was rude or whatever you want to call it, but you didn't earn it. And it won't mean anything. You know what I'm saying? You're getting something that you didn't strive for. And I think later on in life, she kind of understood that after she started competing in different things. You're like, you put forth the effort, that's when you get the trophies. You don't get the trophies just because you show up. You get the trophies because you put forth the effort and you was one of the better on the team. So I think a lot of the parents, instead of everybody wins, everybody gets a big fat ring on Saturday for playing in a tournament just because they showed up, that's not the right way to parent. I think we're missing the mark a little bit on that. And I think sports adds a lot to life, the way life treats you. Everybody's not going to win at life, but if you put forth effort, you got a really good chance to.
When we met, I was thinking, and you mentioned about your daughter liking horses and stuff. I thought this would be a really cool episode. Now that we've talked this all through, might be probably my favorite recording we've done, because it take me back to my childhood, but also most important part of this, the way you wrapped it up and you talked about the life lessons. Man, that's exactly what people need to hear and be encouraged by. So I appreciate you giving your time and coming to do this, because it's for a good cause for sure. People love to hear the story. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on Taking the Reins. A special thank you goes to the Mississippi State Extension Service and the MSU Animal and Dairy Sciences Department. Please visit us on Facebook and Instagram at Taking the Reins Podcast.